The day my divorce was finalized, the sky over downtown Dallas looked strangely bright, like the universe was trying to remind me that storms always pass, even the ones you live through in silence. I stepped out of the courthouse with the papers still warm in my hand, feeling a mix of exhaustion, relief, and a kind of numbness that didn't quite fit any emotion I knew. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe without asking permission. But the peace I imagined lasted about 6 minutes. My phone buzzed with a message from Mark, my now officially ex-husband. 3 long paragraphs. Not one sentence about wishing me well, not one acknowledgement of what we had survived together. Just complaints about how hard the next few months were going to be for him, and a casual assumption that I would help out like always. Like always. Those 2 words burned more than the divorce papers ever could. They were the perfect summary of our marriage, me giving, him taking. Me holding everything together, him assuming I would keep doing it forever. Even now, after the court had drawn the line he refused to see, he still thought I'd carry him, financially and emotionally, like he was entitled to the life I had built. I stood on the courthouse steps, watching people rush past with coffee cups and briefcases, each one on their way to a life that didn't include a man trying to live off them. And I realized something: freedom isn't just walking away. It's refusing to be walked over again. A warm breeze hit my face, sweeping away the bitterness just long enough for a new feeling to settle in: determination. He had no idea who I was becoming. And neither did I, but I was ready to find out. My new apartment wasn't fancy, just a small 1-bedroom on the 2nd floor of an old brick building outside Austin. The carpet was worn, the walls needed paint, and the kitchen tiles clicked under my shoes like they were greeting me after a long journey. But when I dropped my keys into the ceramic bowl by the door and heard the soft clink, something inside me settled. This place was mine. No shared bank accounts, no slammed doors, no walking on eggshells, just me, my own choices, and the quiet hum of possibility. I picked up extra shifts at the hospital and spent late nights experimenting with sourdough recipes, mixing, kneading, waiting, learning patience from the dough itself. Somehow, watching a shapeless lump rise into something warm and nourishing mirrored the way I was trying to rebuild my life. Piece by piece, rise by rise. But Mark didn't disappear, not even close. He called constantly, leaving voicemails about temporary setbacks and mutual responsibilities. He sent messages insisting I owed him support, emotionally, financially, practically. The same story, just a different chapter. At first, it made me angry. Then exhausted. Then something unexpected happened. I stopped feeling anything at all. One evening, after a 14-hour shift, I sat on my balcony with a cup of tea and realized the truth: I wasn't responsible for fixing him anymore. I wasn't responsible for carrying his life, only my own. The freedom of that thought washed over me like warm sunlight after weeks of rain. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to prove anything. I wanted peace. And peace meant building something he could never take advantage of again: my own strength. For the first time in a long time, I felt it growing. One chilly Saturday morning, I loaded my trunk with bags of fresh sourdough loaves for the community shelter downtown. It had become my weekend ritual, something that reminded me the world was bigger than my problems. The shelter sat on a corner where life felt raw and unfiltered. People lined up early, bundled in worn coats, clutching small pieces of hope. As I carried the first basket toward the entrance, I noticed someone sitting alone on a wooden bench beneath a sagging oak tree. His shoulders were hunched, his shirt wrinkled, and his hair uncombed in a way I hadn't seen since our college days. It was Mark. For a moment, I froze, unsure if my eyes were betraying me. But when he looked up, the truth landed hard. His face was pale, exhausted, the spark of arrogance I'd grown so familiar with dimmed to almost nothing. He didn't call out to me. He didn't wave. He just stared, caught between shame and surprise. Later, after dropping off the bread, I lingered outside the shelter doors, peeking over at him. A volunteer walked by and casually mentioned that a lot of people had lost jobs recently. "You never really know what someone's carrying," she said with a kind smile. Her words hit deeper than she realized. I learned from another volunteer that Mark had been there twice before, asking about job programs. Suddenly, the messages he'd sent me, the anger, the desperation, made painful sense. He wasn't just trying to lean on me out of habit. He was drowning. Part of me wanted to turn away, to protect the independence I had fought so hard to build. But another part, the part of me that still believed people could change, wouldn't let me walk past someone who was falling, even if that someone had once dragged me down with him. I took a deep breath and stepped toward the bench. My feet felt strangely heavy as I walked toward the bench, each step pulling me deeper into a moment I hadn't prepared for. Mark looked up when my shadow fell across his shoes. For a split second, something like hope flickered in his eyes before he quickly wiped it away. "I didn't want you to see me like this," he muttered, staring down at his hands. They were trembling slightly. I sat beside him, far enough for space, close enough for honesty. "Life doesn't always give us the choice," I replied gently. He gave a bitter laugh. "Guess you're doing great now. Meanwhile, I can't even land an interview." His voice cracked in a way I had never heard during our marriage. Back then, he had built his confidence like a fortress, solid, intimidating, impossible to climb. Now it looked like someone had blasted holes straight through it. Without saying anything, I reached into the bag I carried and placed a warm loaf of sourdough on his lap. The steam curled upward, carrying the smell of comfort, home, and everything I had rebuilt without him. He stared at it, confused. "Why are you doing this? After everything?" I took a breath. "Because holding on to anger kept me chained to the past. And I'm tired of chains. You're not my responsibility anymore, but you're still a human being. And humans deserve compassion, even when they've fallen." His eyes filled, glistening like he was fighting a battle inside himself. "I thought you'd want to watch me fail," he whispered. "I don't need that," I said softly. "My life is peaceful now. That's enough." In that moment, I realized the truth. My greatest revenge wasn't success, or silence, or proving him wrong. It was kindness, given freely, with nothing left for him to take. And it changed him more than any bitterness ever could. As I walked away from the bench that day, something shifted inside me, quietly, gently, like a knot finally loosening after years of being pulled tight. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel burdened. I felt free. Truly free. Not the kind of freedom that comes from leaving someone, but the kind that comes from finally letting go of the pain they left behind. Over the next few months, life unfolded in ways I never expected. Mark started attending the shelter's job readiness program. The volunteers there, people who gave their time without expecting anything in return, helped him piece his life back together. Slowly, he found a part-time job, then a full-time one. I wasn't involved in any of it, but I heard from the shelter director one day that he was trying really hard. Those 3 simple words told me everything I needed to know. Meanwhile, I poured my energy into the bakery I'd dreamed of for years. I called it Second Rise, because dough always gets stronger after it's knocked down, and so do people. The shop was small but filled with light, with the smell of fresh bread floating out onto the sidewalk each morning. Customers started coming not just for the loaves, but for the warmth the place seemed to carry. Kids drew pictures for the walls. Strangers sat together at the community table and left as friends. One morning, a woman told me, "This place feels like a hug." And for the first time, I believed that everything I had been through had led me exactly where I was supposed to be. I didn't fix my ex-husband's life. I didn't punish him, either. I simply chose compassion over bitterness, and it changed us both. Because when you lead with kindness, even after heartbreak, life has a way of rising beautifully again.